It started with a fence. A simple, sturdy wooden fence that had been standing tall around my property for years. Nothing fancy, just a basic privacy fence to keep nosy neighbors out and my yard secure. Then came Karen. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the HOA president, self-appointed ruler of our quiet suburban kingdom. She enforced rules that didn't exist, fined people for breathing too loudly, and treated the entire neighborhood like her personal fiefdom. And for some reason, she hated my fence. One morning, I walked outside, coffee in hand, only to find my fence gone. Not damaged, not vandalized, gone. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. Had I imagined having a fence? Had it mysteriously evaporated overnight? But then, I saw Karen standing smugly at the edge of my yard, clipboard in hand. "Good morning," she chirped, in that fake sweet voice of hers. "I had to remove your fence. It violated HOA regulations." I frowned. "What regulations?" "The HOA manual says fences are allowed as long as they're maintained." She gave a tight-lipped smile. "Oh, we had a meeting last night. Fences are no longer allowed. You should really attend the meetings." The meeting I wasn't told about. I clenched my jaw, trying to stay calm. "Fine. Where's my fence?" Karen waved a dismissive hand toward her backyard. "Oh, I repurposed it for my new garden." "Waste not, want not." She stole my fence. I stared at her pristine backyard, where my fence panels were now set up neatly around her newly planted flower beds. She had the audacity to steal my property and use it for her own benefit. That's when I knew. This was war. And if she thought taking my fence was a victory, she had no idea what was coming next. Karen thought she had won. She thought she could just steal my fence, change the rules overnight, and get away with it. But I don't go down without a fight. If Karen didn't want me to have a fence, fine. I wouldn't have a fence. I'd have a castle wall. Planning the ultimate comeback. I spent the next week researching construction permits, zoning laws, and every legal loophole I could find. It turned out that while the HOA had the power to ban fences, they couldn't ban decorative structures over 6 feet tall as long as they were classified as landscaping or art. Perfect. The next step? Finding a contractor crazy enough to help me build a medieval-style stone wall around my property. I finally found a guy named Frank, a retired mason who loved a good revenge project. When I told him the story, he laughed so hard he almost dropped his coffee. "So she stole your fence and used it for her garden?" "Oh man, that's low. Let's build you a fortress, my friend." Breaking ground. A week later, the work began. Trucks delivered massive limestone blocks to my property. A small team of workers started assembling a 10-foot-high, medieval-style wall around my yard, complete with battlements and torches. Karen was not happy. I saw her peeking through her blinds, her face twisting in pure rage as the walls slowly rose higher and higher. By day 3, she had stormed over, red-faced and fuming. "What is this monstrosity?" she screeched. I took a long sip of my lemonade and shrugged. "A decorative structure. HOA rules say nothing about medieval fortifications." She stomped her foot like a toddler. "You can't do this." I grinned. "Sure I can. You see, Karen, the HOA manual doesn't say I can't have a castle wall. Just no fences. And this." I gestured at the growing stone fortress. "Definitely not a fence." She looked ready to explode. The HOA emergency meeting. That night, Karen called an emergency HOA meeting. She tried to pass a rule banning castle walls. But there was a problem. Half the neighborhood hated Karen. She had fined people for leaving their garage doors open for too long. She had banned colored Christmas lights. She had even fined an elderly couple for having a bird feeder. So when Karen tried to pass the new rule, she lost the vote. Badly. Instead, the HOA board ruled that my wall was legal. Karen was seething, but there was nothing she could do. The castle wall would stand. And this was only the beginning. Karen was livid. Her plan to ban my castle wall had failed spectacularly, and now she had to live with it, or so I thought. But this was Karen. She wasn't just going to sit back and accept defeat. She was going to fight back. And that's when she made her biggest mistake yet. One morning, I stepped outside, expecting to admire my glorious 10-foot medieval-style fortress. Instead, I found graffiti sprayed across the stonework. Huge, red letters read, "Take it down or else." Someone had also smashed one of my newly installed decorative torches and knocked over a section of scaffolding left behind by the builders. It was obvious who had done it. But I needed proof. I checked my security cameras and there she was. Karen. At 2 a.m., sneaking onto my property, shaking cans of spray paint like some kind of suburban delinquent. She stumbled around with a flashlight, mumbling to herself, then tripped over a flower pot and went face first into my mailbox. It was glorious. But even better, she looked straight at my camera after she fell and flipped it off. Busted. Now, a normal person would have called the cops. A normal person would have reported her to the HOA. But I'm not normal. I'm petty. And Karen had just given me the perfect excuse to take my revenge to the next level. So, instead of calling the police, I called my contractor. "Frank," I said, "I need a watchtower." There was a long pause. Then Frank burst out laughing. "Oh man, I love this job." Within days, the next phase of my master plan was underway. A 15-foot stone watchtower began rising at the corner of my wall, complete with a spiral staircase, faux arrow slits, and a working spotlight. Karen lost her mind. The moment she saw workers hoisting stone blocks into place, she marched over, screeching like a banshee. "You can't build a watchtower. This isn't a castle. This is a neighborhood." I gave her the biggest, smuggest grin of my life. "It's an artistic lawn feature, Karen." "A what?" I gestured to the HOA rulebook. The manual allows decorative landscaping elements. My watchtower is decorative. It's art. Her eye twitched so hard I thought she might explode on the spot. But the HOA rules were on my side. So all she could do was stand there, trembling with rage as my watchtower grew taller and taller. 2 nights later, Karen tried to fight back. She sent out urgent emails demanding a special HOA meeting. She printed flyers. She even went door to door, ranting about how my ugly, ridiculous castle was lowering property values. But here's the hilarious part. Half the neighborhood loved the wall. People started walking by just to take pictures. Kids thought it was awesome. One guy even asked if he could host his son's birthday party in my yard, calling it the coolest thing in town. So when Karen finally held the HOA meeting, she lost the vote again. Badly. The HOA officially ruled that my castle wall and watchtower were fully compliant. Karen was losing control and she knew it. But she wasn't done yet. Oh no. She still had one last trick up her sleeve. And this time, she was going to play dirty. Karen was at her breaking point. Her plan to destroy my castle wall? Failed. Her attempt to stop my watchtower? Disaster. Her last-ditch HOA meeting? Embarrassing defeat. But instead of giving up, Karen did what all unhinged HOA tyrants do when they lose. She doubled down. And this time, she wasn't just trying to stop me. She was trying to destroy me. It was a peaceful morning when I heard the sound of tires screeching in front of my house. A white city vehicle pulled up, and out stepped a grumpy-looking building inspector, clipboard in hand. Behind him? Karen. With her arms crossed, wearing her usual self-satisfied smirk. "Good morning," the inspector grunted. "I received a report that you're in violation of multiple zoning codes." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really?" Who reported me? Karen smiled wider. An anonymous tip. Of course. The inspector walked around my property, muttering under his breath as he examined my stone wall and watchtower. After 30 minutes, he came back with a grim look. You're in compliance, he admitted. Karen's smile vanished. But then the inspector flipped a page on his clipboard. However, he continued, your driveway does not meet city drainage codes. You need to fix that immediately. I blinked. My driveway? The same one that had been there for years with zero issues? I turned to Karen. You really dug through the codebook, huh? She grinned. Rules are rules. Oh. So that's how she wanted to play it? Fine. Game on. I spent the next few days fixing my driveway. And by fixing, I mean I built a fully functional drawbridge. Yes. A real, wooden, chain-operated drawbridge. If Karen wanted to mess with my property, I was going to make it as ridiculous and medieval as possible. My contractor, Frank, he was losing his mind with excitement. Dude, this is insane. I love it. We should add a moat. Me. You know what? Hold that thought. By the end of the week, my brand new drawbridge driveway was complete. It could be raised and lowered with a pulley system, and I even installed a fake medieval crest above it for extra pettiness. When Karen saw it, she lost her absolute mind. She stormed over, her face redder than a tomato, waving a printed copy of the HOA manual. A drawbridge, she shrieked. Are you kidding me? I sipped my coffee. It's an artistic driveway feature, Karen. She sputtered. You can't have a drawbridge in a suburban neighborhood. I pointed at the HOA rulebook. It doesn't say that anywhere. She looked like she was about to combust. Then she screamed in frustration and stormed off. Victory. Or so I thought. Because that night, she called the police on me. At 11 p.m., I heard sirens outside. A police car pulled up in front of my house, and 2 officers stepped out. Guess who was standing behind them? Karen. With her arms crossed, looking smug as hell. That's him, officers, she said, pointing at me. He's violating multiple city ordinances, creating unsafe structures, and disturbing the peace. I stepped outside, rubbing my temples. Karen, are you serious? One officer held up a hand. Sir, we got a complaint. Can we take a look? I sighed. Knock yourselves out. The officers walked around, inspecting my wall, my watchtower, and my beautiful new drawbridge. After 20 minutes, they came back, looking impressed. Honestly, one officer said, this is kind of awesome. His partner nodded. We don't see anything illegal here. Karen's smug grin vanished. What? The first officer shrugged. No laws against having a medieval-themed driveway. Karen looked like she was about to explode. Then the second officer smirked at me. Hey, any chance my kid can see this? He loves castles. Of course, I said, grinning ear to ear. In fact, I'm hosting a medieval barbecue this weekend. The cop laughed. Sounds amazing. I'll bring my kid. Karen? She screamed in frustration and stormed away for the second time that day. But I knew. She wasn't done yet. Karen still had one final trick up her sleeve. And this time, she was going for the kill. Karen was desperate. She had stolen my fence, lost the HOA battle, vandalized my property, called the city inspector, tried to get my driveway condemned, and even called the cops on me. And yet, I kept winning. She had one last move left. And this time, she was out for blood. One morning, I got a letter from the HOA. I expected it to be another bogus fine or some new Karen-made rule banning castles. Nope. This was worse. The letter claimed that my property violated so many HOA rules that my home was now considered a public nuisance. And because of this, the HOA was voting to have me forcibly removed from the neighborhood. Yes, Karen was literally trying to evict me. This was war. So I went nuclear. I spent the next week researching local laws, and that's when I found the golden ticket. Turns out, my city had a historic and artistic landmark program. If a property was considered architecturally unique, historically significant, or artistically valuable, it could be declared a protected landmark, which meant the HOA could never touch it. Even better, Karen would lose all authority over my property. Forever. It was game over. I immediately filed an official application to have my medieval castle recognized as an artistic landmark. And just to make sure it got approved, I hired a historian and a local artist to write glowing reviews about how my castle was a modern tribute to medieval architecture and a cultural treasure of the neighborhood. And guess what? The city approved it. My home was now an official protected landmark. Karen's HOA had zero power over it. When she found out, she had a meltdown. Karen called an emergency HOA meeting, claiming my stupid castle was an eyesore that needed to be torn down immediately. I showed up with a copy of my landmark certification and slapped it down on the table. Sorry, Karen. The city says my castle is a protected landmark now. You officially have no power here. Karen's face turned purple. You can't do this. This is a neighborhood, not a theme park. One of the HOA board members chuckled. Well, Karen, maybe if you hadn't banned fences, this never would have happened. The entire room laughed. Karen? She screamed in frustration, grabbed her clipboard, and stormed out. And just like that, her reign of terror was over. With my property now a protected landmark, Karen couldn't find me, stop me, or control me ever again. Even better, I started hosting medieval neighborhood BBQs. Neighbors came over dressed as knights and wizards. We had roast turkey legs, jousting contests, and kids running around with foam swords. The best part? The mayor heard about my castle and showed up to one of my BBQs. Karen, watching from her yard, looked like she was about to spontaneously combust. And then, she moved out. Yep, Karen sold her house and left the neighborhood. Because at the end of the day, I won. And she? Lost. Years later, my castle still stands. People still stop by to take pictures. Kids still play outside my watchtower. And every time I walk across my drawbridge driveway, I smile. Because no matter what Karen did, I outplayed her at every turn. And in the end, the king of the neighborhood still reigns. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.